And we're back. You know, I walked into the control room and the phones are lit up.
That's because there are a lot of people lit up with this, let me tell you.
How do you want to do this, Missy?
Well, who's on the line? Who's on the line?
What are we going to be talking about?
We are talking about, we all understand the financial impact of having to give away. I mean, I know someone who says, I pay $4,000 a month, I work 200 hours a month to pay that, and the person receiving it works 0 hours a month. So we all understand the financial impact. Let's talk to Latrice. She's a woman who pays permanent alimony to her ex-husband. And Latrice, we know that it's difficult financially, but what are the emotional aspects of this journey for you?
Hey, Debbie. For me, it's I was married 22 years. He was abusive. I had an injunction against him. So at this point in our marriage, through the divorce portion of it, I had one court giving me an injunction telling me that they were going to protect me, and then I have the other side of the court telling me that I have to pay this person. And it continues. I get monthly emails. I have to have my phone blocked, or either he calls, because it's any excuse to still be in contact with me. So for me, the divorce hasn't ended. It won't end until I can sever that line.
Yeah, you know, that's the problem. You're not really divorced. You don't have to live with the person, but you still have to send them money. And as long as they're dependent on that money, the other party doesn't move on.
Well, wait a minute. Latrice is the one paying?
Yes.
And she's the one that needed...
Paying.
And
she's paying to an abusive man.
And you need them to protect you, and you're paying?
Yes, sir. I'm paying. He gets 50% of my paycheck.
All right, so let me.
How many hours a week do you work, Latrice?
I work 40 hours a week. I'm a nurse, and I'm kind of in a situation where if I work more, he is aware of that, and he'll take me back to court to get more money. So you know, if I try to better myself, I'm kind of stuck too because of that. And he lives out of state, so I'm not protected even further because my injunction protects me while I'm out of the state if he attacks me, but as far as the verbal and the emotional stuff that he puts me through, there's no help at all because he's out of the state.
Wow.
So let me get this right. Do you have children, Latrice?
I do. I have teenage kids.
Teenage kids.
They lived with me until last year. Last year they decided they wanted to go to South Carolina, so I also pay him child support because they were up in South Carolina.
Okay, so they're with him? Is that what you're telling me?
Yes.
Oh, that's wonderful. Okay, so the bottom line here is you're paying and you're being threatened. So if you didn't pay and you went to jail instead of them sending him to jail, you'd probably be safe.
Yeah, probably. You're right.
I mean, that's the logic to this madness.
Mm-hmm.
Has he threatened to, I mean, is he really a danger to hurt you physically? He
is when he's in the States. I had to do a lot of provisions to protect myself because I saw with injunction, there's things in that whole area that's not correct because it has the whole 500 yards, and he literally sat like 505 yards from my house and sat up in front of my house for 3 hours just to aggravate me when he was in town, just that kind of thing. So I went and got my concealed weapons permit. I mean, I've done things to make sure that I'm safe because I really can't trust the courts or if law enforcement at any given time. But if he's around, he is a threat, and he does threaten me that. I get the emails, did you go to work because I really need my money this month. You need to stay healthy, that kind of thing. Just enough to let me know he's still there.
22 years married, huh?
22 years.
Wow.
I married at 18. So at this point, without the new law, I would be paying longer than the term of my marriage.
Well, there you go. That's a good example.
So the law will help you then?
It'll help me. This law happened last week, even though it's not complete, but that final vote from the House was the first time that I've been able to feel like if I go back into court, I may have a chance at somebody actually supporting me and protecting me for a change to at least put an end to this.
I've never met Latrice in person. I have communicated with her online, and you know what? I almost feel like crying knowing that she's going to get relief from this. It makes me feel so good that this bill is going to help her. Governor Scott, you please sign this bill, and don't listen to the family law section. This is good for women and children. Here's a woman on the phone who needs your help.
Wow, this is just craziness. It's crazy, and she gets threatened, and then she has to pay for it.
Yeah, it's like paying. If I always say you have a woman who got raped, and you're forcing me to pay my rapist every month.
Well, California had a story like that, and the woman did get to stop paying her alimony because of it. I don't know if you're aware of that, Latrice. I can't think of her name right now, but she was on the Anderson Cooper show, and as a result of her being on that show, they did change the law in California.
Well, Florida needs to kind of get on that because, you read on the news and see on the news and read in the papers every day about, these people walking through these injunctions. They're just a sheet of paper.
Right, exactly.
And if you have that link that constantly keeps you in connection with them, you can never break through. I mean, they're going to find out. They know where you work. If it's garnished wages, they have a way to find you regardless of where you go.
Okay. You wanted to ask her on the psychological aspect?
Yeah, basically, what does this do to you? When you lay down to go to sleep at night, how does this affect you?
Gosh, it's been hard. I mean, you don't sleep. Divorce is hard anyway. I mean, forget that portion of it. But when you're getting harassed, and I was getting text messages, 100 a day. While I'm trying to work, my phone's going off, and you try not to look at that stuff, but you look at it. You see the crap they write and the things that they do, and you can't shut it off. I've had migraine headaches that, just started coming back. The stress level, just the whole emotional thing, you never can shut it off. You never get to cut that line.
And Latrice, what does your attorney say to all this?
He was shocked. He actually called me. He found out one of the clerks, I guess, who was doing for the judge's paperwork. He called me because he wanted me to hear it from him before my ex found out, because he knew what was going to happen. I mean, he knew what it was. So he's just astonished. He just can't believe it either. I mean, the whole situation is just it's proven that the judges have such a gray area that they can just run with it. This law, when it goes into effect, it'll close the gray areas and make it more black and white, so that there's definitely not the room to wiggle as much.
Well, there's still going to be judicial discretion, probably too much. I mean, at this point, when I hear all these stories, I think there should be no judicial discretion. But I guess we can never get a law passed without that. But, you seem to have a very compelling case, and we want to make sure that you have the right representation so you finally can get some relief from this.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the whole other issue. You look at the person. He's definitely a person that can manipulate the system because he's doing a very good job of it with just the financial portions of it. But, so you're really faced with your back's against the wall. You just got to have to put your faith, and hopefully you get the right judge at the right time.
Okay.
Yep. Well, we'll be in touch, Latrice. And
you hang in there, Latrice.
And
thank you.
Thanks for calling.
All right. Have a good day.
Let's take the next caller.
Terry.
Terry, you're on the air.
Great. Thank you for having me. This is such an important issue, and it's just so thrilling that it has gotten such overwhelming reaction in a positive way by the Senate and the House. It's really going to be life-changing.
Terry is also a female permanent alimony payer to her ex-husband. She was married only 13 years. Okay. So, Terry, we know the financial impact, but what has this done to you and to your life?
Well, I mean, everybody knows divorce takes an enormous emotional toll, and everybody hopes it's going to be over soon. But in a situation where you're paying permanent alimony, it never ends. I am tied to a man that I never want to see again because I'm mandated to support him. And the fact that he has a degree in business doesn't seem to matter to the court, but the sheer unfairness of it weighs heavily on me and my children, who are grown now. They're both in their 20s. I'm in sales, so my income fluctuates. And, each week my paycheck tells me what he made and what I made. There are times when after, really giving it my all and having a great day, suddenly it will dawn on me that he got 65% of what I did that day, and I just get 35%.
Wow.
And it's, I'm in the type of business where I coach people and I motivate people, so I read positive, impacting books all the time, and I speak on things like that, and I just was always, I'm going to beat this. I'm going to make so much money that it's not going to matter that I have to pay him so much, but it just takes a toll on you. And then with the economy, my income started going down, and he actually took me back to court several times over the past 13 years to enormous attorney fees, and he got his money raised. So even though I was making less money, they gave him more money.
Wow. Now, what do you think, Terry, when the governor, or not the governor, but when you hear people from the family law section saying that this bill is bad for women and children, what's your take on that? I mean, aside from the obvious that it'll help you, but, when you hear about these House reps and senators saying, all these women are going to be on welfare and homeless and blah, 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 what's your reaction to that?
Well, my first reaction is how incredibly uneducated they are and how scary it is that they've been elected by people to represent them, and yet they don't know what's going on around them. That's scary to me, very scary. It's been very encouraging that so many of the representatives do know what they're talking about, but so many of them don't. And I don't know whether they have daughters that are receiving permanent alimony or they're receiving permanent alimony, but the Florida law section, years ago when I would hear jokes about attorneys, I could never understand it. Why are people making bad jokes about attorneys? Now I know, unfortunately. And the fact that the last time I went to court a couple of years ago, went to an attorney because I was trying to file a modification. My income had gone down to a fraction of what it had been. And so I thought, okay, there's no chance that a judge won't modify my judgment. And I took my last $25,000 out of my retirement. I'm 62 years old, and this was 3 years ago. And I asked an attorney, very stupidly and naively, can you help me with this? Because this is all the money I have. I hardly have enough money to live on. I don't have any more money to give you. Do you think that we can get through this modification? Oh, yes, of course we can. Well, 2 years and $75,000 later in attorney fees, nothing had changed in my case. Nothing. I was still paying the same amount of alimony, and I had those attorney fees weighing on me as well.
What's your ex-husband's reason for not working?
Well, originally he said that it was because he'd been in a car accident and he had back and neck problems, but and that he was getting disability, and he did get temporary disability from his job and from Social Security for a very short period of time. And then they said, you're not disabled, so we're not paying you anymore. And, I don't know about you, but I have back and neck problems, and most people that work jobs do have back and neck problems. And part of him says, oh, I'm disabled and I can't work. The other half of him says that, well, the law says that I can have that money. They've awarded me that money, so it must be the right thing to do. I must deserve it.
And your daughter doesn't speak to him now, isn't that correct?
Yeah, she doesn't. It's very, very sad. I don't care for him. I don't want to speak to him, but I never think it's a good thing for a child to not have a relationship with their parents. And both my son and daughter have gone to him and in a very reasonable way tried to say, Dad, please get a job. Stop taking money from Mom. She doesn't have the money she used to have. She's barely making it. She's losing her house. He wouldn't budge. And my daughter just felt like he's choosing money over a relationship with me. And it's sad. And as much as I don't like him, I hold the courts to blame. Because if the laws that are now going to be hopefully enforced with the new alimony reform had been in place when I got divorced, my alimony would have been over 5 years ago. He would have known that it was going to be over in 6.5 years. He would have done something to get back into the workplace. He'd be a happier person. He'd have a relationship with his kids. He'd be a contributing member of the society instead of living off of somebody that you're not married to anymore.
Now,
And
Terry,
having to
how many children do you have? Some older children too, right?
I do. I have two that are in their 30s that were from my first marriage, and two that Madeline's 23 and Matt's 25 that are from the marriage who's, the ex I pay alimony.
What do you say to these women who say, well, I gave up my career to stay at home to raise the children, and now I need support the rest of my life? What message would you give to those women as a successful businesswoman yourself?
Well, my biggest concern is always, what kind of message are you giving your children when you're not being a contributing member of society, when you're not setting the example that, you pull yourself up by your bootstraps. I'm never, ever would say that somebody shouldn't get rehabilitative alimony. They may need temporary alimony to get back on their feet, but then, go to school, learn a skill. There's so many women that I know that have done that, and their children are so proud of them, and they just feel like, gosh, what a great woman my mother is because of what she's been through and what she did. She didn't sit back and just expect somebody to take care of her. And that's, we don't live in a world where you can get by without taking responsibility for yourself. And to set an example for your children that that's okay is really a cruel thing to do.
Do you believe the family law section when they say that they're worried about the women and children of Florida? Do you believe that?
Of course not. They're worried about their pockets. They are worried about the almighty dollar that is coming into that law firm.
Right.
I'm not saying there aren't some attorneys that are caring human beings, but for the most part, they have themselves fooled into thinking that what they're doing is okay. Otherwise, I don't think they could sleep at night.
Well, I think, that from the ivory tower of the law school class, they believe that the woman or the man who contributed to the household deserves to be reimbursed. And I believe, that they think that way. But, the outcomes that we see in the courts are very different than the theory that they teach in the classroom. And that's the problem, and that's the disconnect. And it's very hard for me to believe that people who actually graduated from law school believe that. And if I wonder if I gave them some sodium pentothal, if they would really still say the same thing, or if they would admit that the real reasons.
What's interesting is I had somebody admit it to me, and it was a sad but wonderful thing to happen at the same time. Through these 13 years, I've had 4 attorneys and 4 judges, and it was my 3rd attorney. So the wonderful woman that had recently made partner. And she just kind of let her hair down with me, and she said, I have never been so disillusioned with the law in my life as I have been with what has happened in your case. It's really made me question if I'm doing the right thing.
Yeah. Well, thanks for calling, Terry. I appreciate you sharing what you're going through with us. I'm doing this because I need to get this out there to the public, what's happening.
Absolutely, absolutely. The governor has got to sign this bill. He's just got to. I can't imagine him not doing what is in the best interest of the state of Florida by signing the bill. I just can't.
Keep writing him.
Yeah.
I will. Thank you so much for having me on the
thanks,
show.
Terry. Thanks for calling.
Thanks.
You have Nick.
Nick.
Online. Nick, you're on the air.
Hi.
Hi, Nick.
Hi, good evening. Hi, Debbie. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Well, the permanent alimony.
We're talking about we all know the financial implications of having to pay someone, but I'm talking about the emotional implications and what it does to you as a person.
Well, I'm always living in fear. I'm always living in fear because my salary is garnished. I've got 2 sons, and as a result, just the role of a father to make a good impression on his sons, an honorable impression, to steer them right. I'm trying to live the best way that I could, and I'm practically living in poverty because of the alimony. And I'm not being aggressive. I'm not going after her. And like I said, I'm in fear. And what I'm in fear of is that she can go after me. Now, I just started working again at the same company I was working at 4 years ago. and she can go after me.
You
And then
mean
they
for
would
more
go
money?
I'm sorry?
Go after you for more money?
Yes, and for arrearages. Okay, because the assumption is in the private sector that you can get whatever you want, and that's not true. And going to court, I had 3 attorneys representing me, one right after the other. And one of them actually sued me, and he won. He got $3,800, and I was devastated. And so emotionally, I don't want to make more money. I'm afraid. I've had process servers knock on my door, and they knock on your door like there's criminal activity going on. So I feel like a criminal. I had trouble sleeping at night. I don't like where I live, but that's all I could afford. And then my relationships with other people, with friends, even just trying to get back into a relationship with women, women that are educated, women that are working. It's very difficult because in dating after divorce, they ask things like, well, how long were you married? Do you see your kids? And it's like, oh, no, I don't. Well, one of them lives with me, but I didn't see them for quite a long time because she would brainwash them. And she would make up all sorts of excuses why they can't see me. And I had to go pick them up. And she also got the marital home for nothing, so she's got that asset. But emotionally, how do I explain myself without sounding like a deadbeat? And that's a very difficult thing to do.
You know, the emotional aspects of this are so profound. I spoke to a man last night on the phone who was saying that he lives on $87 a month and that's all he has left for himself, and he wants to go out and have a new relationship and a new person in his life. He just can't afford to.
Yeah.
Nick, how long were you married?
That's interesting. I was married for 17 years. After a second mediation, we ended up going to court, and so in the final order, after 2 years of litigation, it said I was married for 19 years. So what I like about this law, this new bill, is it puts a definite timeline.
The date of filing.
The date of filing.
Right.
So one of the things is, and it was all emotional during that 2-year period. She was able to get a falsified domestic violence injunction against me because I saw how she was abusing the children medically. Yeah. And my attorney would not handle it unless I paid him.
That's an attorney MO in a lot of cases where the first thing they do is file a domestic violence injunction to keep the parties away, and it's also a way of generating more revenue because they can only communicate through the attorneys. So that's just a typical MO, and that's really sick. I mean, it's one thing if it's genuinely needed, like in Latrice's case, but if it's just an MO thing just to generate revenue, that's ridiculous. I've heard the story more than once.
And the thing is, going back to the emotional aspect, I did not see my children for 3 months, and during that time, my oldest son received his holy confirmation, and I was not allowed to go to it.
Wow.
And I had to tell him once we started seeing each other again, once I started seeing both of my sons, what happened. And I have to tell him in a way that seems like I'm not bashing his mother. Okay?
And that's a very tough one. That's a tough one because if you tell him the truth, you will be bashing her. So you have to kind of skirt the truth. And, well, I feel for you, Nick, and I just hope that this law will give you some relief.
Some relief. I don't know.
Governor Scott, I hope you're listening.
Yeah.
We'll send this tape to the governor.
We can do that. We can send all these tapes.
Well, one of the things I've noticed, if I may interject, Cynthia Stafford was in the first committee that reviewed the bill in the House, and she starts bringing up issues that were quite irrelevant, in my opinion.
I know.
And she said something, until women get paid as much as men, and she's supposed to be an attorney. You figured she would have studied history. In 1972, the Equal Rights Amendment was passed by Washington, D.C., but not all of the states ratified it, which means they didn't have to follow it. Florida is one of those states. So if she's worried about women getting paid as much as men, she ought to work with her colleagues there and ratify the Equal Rights Amendment.
You know what? Where I work, the women and the men get paid equally because we're on a contract by the state. It doesn't have a gender stated coming with the salary. So it's maybe in private industry that's true, but where I work, it's not true. But thank you for calling, Nick.
Tiffany, you're on the air.
Hello.
How are you?
Hi, Tiffany.
Hi, Debbie. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Oh, I'm okay. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for calling. Tiffany has done a lot of blogging about this aspect, what I'm talking about, the emotional aspect of permanent alimony. Her husband pays permanent alimony. So I'll let you go ahead and tell us your story. We're talking about the emotional aspects of this, not so much the financial.
Correct. Basically, like, where do you want me to begin? I don't know even sometimes where to begin my story.
Anywhere you feel comfortable.
I'm just very overwhelmed on a daily basis. A lot of people say that I want people to know right off the bat that we're not disgruntled women or payers of alimony, permanent alimony. I think that I'm angry, I'm hurting, I'm upset, I feel violated. On a daily basis, I can rapidly cycle through any emotional feeling out there because of what this is doing to me and my family, my husband, my son. Everybody involved is hurting.
I hear you. Believe me, I hear you.
And Tiffany, how long were you married?
5 years. It'll be 5 years now.
Okay.
Approaching 40. It's my second marriage.
Okay. And you been divorced how long?
No, her husband pays.
Oh, her
current husband is paying.
He was married 5 years?
No, Tiffany, how long
I
was your
married
husband?
5 years to my husband, who had been previously married for over 20 years.
Okay.
I was in a relationship and married for 10, but with him for over 15. And I have a son through that marriage, my first marriage, but I didn't receive any kind of alimony, nor did I receive child support for that matter, which I won't get into for this conversation, but I can assure you that I did not want his money. I did not need his alimony. I refused to take it. I wanted to go ahead and move forward in my life by myself. And with that determination, I went back to school. I bought a small house. I raised my son, and I'm very proud of myself for that. Then I married this man.
Is that the son you had with did your
The son is with her first husband.
Yeah.
The son is with her first husband. But tell us what it's like for your husband to pay permanent alimony to this woman. And I know a little bit about your story, so share with us what it's like for him to pay this woman and what this woman is like.
You know, I hear a lot of stories saying about the displaced homemakers, these women who are on welfare, staying in abusive marriages, and that's really not the typical woman that we are used to seeing in this permanent alimony situation. On many occasions, it's this society of women that are very entitled. They feel that they've earned this entitlement factor of receiving this money until the very day they die. And a lot of these women in the marriages, they've run the marriage into financial ruin. They themselves were codependent, abusive themselves with the situation. And a lot of these men are very good, and women are very good men, very good women in society that have done right by their family. And it's oftentimes that the one who's receiving the permanent alimony is often the one who's filed for the divorce.
Right.
So
But when you say you cycle through the emotions, I relate to that because that's something that I go through, and I have a lot of inner turmoil in myself that borderlines on depression at times because of this.
Absolutely.
So tell me what you go through.
We first found out about alimony last year, and I can tell you that it hit our marriage. It hit me. It hit my son's life. It hit us hard. It hit us fast and hard, and I was dumbfounded that someone else in America could earn the right to the very day they die to receive a paycheck, knowing that the other party can never retire. I went through a tremendous amount of depression because not only did that affect him, but as in my marriage, in my loving him the way I do and my son, that has totally created turmoil for my future. Can I ever retire? No. Can I plan for my future? No. Is my future uncertain? Absolutely. And I worked pretty darn hard to get to where I am today just to have given it away to somebody else. That infuriates me. That makes me angry, bitter. Then, yes, depression sets in, anxiety sets in, fear sets in. I can tell you that I definitely have become crippled in this last year of realization of what this actually means and what it means to me in my life. My son has overheard my husband and I having private, very intimate conversations. He's 16, and I was a little ignorant to the fact that he might not understand it, but he certainly does, and he's overheard his stepfather calling himself a loser, and me out loud crying that, like, what are we going to do? I feel like I'm a prisoner of the state. I feel like we're sentenced to a death sentence, and I don't know how I'm ever going to see past this at times.
That's how I feel. And when you ask me, Freddie, if I'm getting married, now you know the reason why.
But I thought you were getting married.
No, but it has nothing to do with lack of love. It has nothing to do with,
Debbie, I tell you, I went through that. I can honestly tell you, I thought to myself, let's get a divorce. I can't handle this. I don't know how I'm going to do this. We'll stay together, but I need a divorce. I bought this house. He didn't have anything. He walked away with nothing. I bought this house with my money. At any given time, our financials can become completely unstable because she wants to live according to this lifestyle, and she can take us back. Now, I know in Florida, I'm in New Jersey, but in Florida, if I'm correct, they can take a part of the wife's salary, correct?
Yes, the laws in New Jersey
I would lose
are
my
actually
mind.
worse in Florida because a long-term marriage in New Jersey, I believe, is 10 years. Is that correct?
It is. Well, even if some of the laws passed, I just have to. His marriage is over 24 years. So at this rate, I feel like I just want him to have the decency and the right to retire at a normal age. He's 53. He's rebuilding and establishing his life. And, he has chronic injuries, chronic pain. She's running around in Jimmy Choo shoes for $2,000, $3,000, $5,000, and yet I'm wearing Walmart sneakers, which is okay because I work every day and I work hard and I'm involved in the community and my life.
You're a nurse, is that right, Tiffany?
Huh?
You're a nurse?
I am. I'm in a critical care area right now. So.
All right. Well,
and I work for that by myself. And you know what? Here's the crazy part. I am now in this mad, crazy rush to finish my master's, which I haven't finished yet, because I feel like some way I can only control the controllable with the situation. I cannot control the governor. I cannot control the state. I can blog. I can email. I can Twitter as much as I'd like. At the end of the day, I can only control the controllable. And what can I control? My stability, my financial security, so that when he needs to retire, I can still pay her alimony, which is completely absurd. I still need to save for my son and be able to give my son what's rightfully able to be able to give him as his mother that she should have given her kids, but she didn't because of her financial greed and her obsessions for the finer things in life and this luxury life. Well, I should have that same right. So I'm in this rush to finish my master's so I can have a higher income so that I can take care of all of us. And I just think that's a tremendous
Well, Tiffany,
burden.
you're a beautiful woman, and we're in the same boat together, and we'll stay in touch over the internet, and we'll